But yeah, I think that, for me, that's what drives me now. And I know we talked recently about doing what I do, and I just have such a different perspective now. And as I shared with you before, it's not about me. For so long it was about me. It was part of my income. It was about feeling cool, or I don't know, just, hey, I'm going around the region teaching workshops and blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. I just realized like this stuff, it saved my life. Really. It did. I mean, there was times I didn't even know if I wanted to continue on, and all this stuff, it's just really what changed my life, what saved my life. And I thought, well, if that can help somebody else on some level, then like you asked me to come back and teach. And that's been the whole part of this process too, and got me to where I am now, to where I'm like, yeah, I'll do this stuff without paying me if you want. I'll just show up because I want to help people. And if it even helps them a little bit, like would it help me, then I'm all in. Yeah. So, yeah. So,
well, that's
a lot.
it's really a incredible description of living yoga,
Oh, thanks.
And I think you mentioned the Yoga Sutras, and it talks about asana, or the physical practices very little.
Mm-hmm.
So what's all the rest of it? Well, that's what you described, like the
thanks.
philosophy of living it, and that, not to use a worn out analogy, but that, Phoenix rising from the ashes, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea, that sometimes we just have to, hit rock bottom,
yeah,
and realize it. And the thing that struck me as you were sharing that wonderful story of transformation is about feeling it. And that's the inside job, I think,
mm-hmm.
where you had a conscious decision to feel it. Like, I want to be aware, fully aware, inside and out, what's going on.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, what's missing a lot in our cultures is we numb out.
Yeah.
And we don't all, I'm in recovery. Not everybody, goes into addiction like I did, but we get caught up in a steady numbing that's very monotonous. And it might be working all the time. It might be shopping all the time. It might mm-hmm. be doing service all the time and neglecting yourself and family. Mm-hmm. There's all these different things we can do in our culture to numb out from not really living fully and not really being conscious of our present, feeling of being present. And our culture rewards that. Like, yeah. Oh, look at him. He comes early and stays late every day. Mm-hmm. What a great committed employee or owner or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, I heard a lot of you stepping back and looking at the whole picture, which I think is, really what the philosophy and mindful living, which, mindfulness has become kind of a buzzword out there.
Yeah.
In the last several years. But what does that mean about just being present, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all those things you described. And one other thing that struck me, one of my teachers talks about, and he travels all around the world. He's from Southern India. He's got a, pretty big presence out there in the yoga community, and then some ecology stuff and taking care of the planet. And his philosophy is about, he feels like he's a joyful being. Sorry. The idea of being a joyful being is what brings him to travel and go 20 hours a day, sometimes mm-hmm. teaching. And the thing he observed, and not in a judgmental way, is he looked at the West, America and really developed countries, recognizing that our quality of life and standard of living is higher than any time in the history of civilization. And he works with CEOs, and he works with, the everyday person, mm-hmm. and the level of unhappiness he sees traveling out in America with all this abundance. There's this underlying sadness or feeling of incompleteness, mm-hmm. and just a little unhappiness that's pervasive through our culture. And it's a vicious cycle. I mean, it feeds the advertising that says, buy this and you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Do this and you'll be successful and you'll feel whole, or what, so it's interesting that you're taking this holistic view to the work you're doing with students and clients in a real way, not in a manufactured or superficial way. So I think that's really cool. And I think it's super needed, right now for people that maybe they've been coming to the gym for a couple of years and they plateau. And you are the person that can see they could move beyond this if they just turn inward.
Yeah.
And that's like such a valuable thing to be looking at.
Yeah. I think that for me, I just had such a different perspective on all of it because I felt like I could see those things in myself and other people before, but I really wasn't at that time capable or willing to go there with myself or other people, and yeah, we sedate, in different ways so we don't have to deal with our stuff or we can continue with the stories, and we, so I feel like this experience I went through, it was back in 2015 is when it really all kind of transpired or came to a head, as it were. And I feel like through that, I was able to, in a sense, pass that test because now I have such a comfort level in all that now. It doesn't freak me out. It doesn't freak me out to talk about it. I haven't talked about this much. It's just something I'm starting to share with people because I was embarrassed about it and everything else. And but now it's kind of like I'm not ashamed of that. It's something I went through and I'm in some respects proud of it because, I'm not proud of how things happen, but I'm appreciative and proud of how I dealt with it at the end of the day and what I learned through that. And so, I say I passed the test, but I also realize there's more to come, for as long as I'm alive, there's going to be another one somewhere down the road. And so I want to continue to be present and prepared and following my vision and my calling. And I think that is so crucial to being ready for those kinds of things and not being afraid to do the work. The other part of it is I feel like my ability to see that in other people is crystal clear. I call it my superpower. Like I can spot it a mile away. I mean, I could smell it, but I wasn't really sure. And I was always, really afraid of going there with people or offending them or something. Realizing now that was just like a real disservice to them and to my gifts and to my, calling. So yeah, now it's like I can spot that a mile away. I can call people on it in a way that's not judgmental. I can't judge anybody for anything after all the stuff I've done and been through. And so I can just have compassion and understanding and say, I've been there. Maybe it's been worse for me, maybe not so bad or whatever. And that's not to be comparative, but it's just to say I can understand, I relate, and I can help. And I want to help. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And it's why I have some projects in the works right now and why I've really restructured and, to use a Western term, rebranded some things in the last year, especially, is because I want to help. And I know that I can see these things and I know that there's people out there that need it and that are ready for it and willing to embrace help or seek it out. And I just want to be out there and available for those that connect with me, whether it's through this podcast or whether it's through classes or my website, I don't know, whatever it is, and if they're ready and they're willing to do the work, then I'm all in.
Yeah, right. Well, that coming from that place of compassion, I think when you're coming from a place of the heart, you reach the heart and people sense that and if they're ready, then they know you're the guy.
Yeah.
Right. So talk a little bit about your projects coming up. You mentioned you're going into describe the program.
Cool. Yeah. So, my brand, as it were, I started after kind of getting back into the wellness game was just Chris Roche Wellness. So that's just the brand, I guess. But the direction I'm moving in now, I want to be able to impact as many people as possible that are interested and ready. And so I'm moving more into an online platform. So I have an online course that I will be coming out hopefully in mid-June, maybe mid-July or thereabouts. We can talk about how to find out more about that. But it's presented as a meditation challenge, but it's really taking a lot of the things that I learned and presenting it in a 21-day challenge to people to kind of help them create the headspace and give them the tools that they need to kind of get moving in the direction, and ultimately maybe just through that 21 days and those tools to get the answers they need and the clarity and the vision that they need and how to move in that direction. Or if they want to then go deeper with me, I'm more than happy to do that with folks. But I want to be available to people no matter where. I don't want to be limited by geography, basically. And I also don't want to be limited by time, meaning that if I can only help one person at a time, that's great. But if I can help 50 people at a time or 10 people or whatever that is, I want that to be a possibility. So yeah, I've got an online course coming out in the next month or so. Mid-June, mid-July, thereabouts. And then I have beyond that some other courses I will be creating that will kind of build off of that. And then of course, if people want to work with me remotely through Skype and FaceTime and tools like that, technology these days is amazing. Back in the day when I was doing online training, it was sending things through snail mail, printing out a binder and sending it off, or maybe an email exchange, and that was about it. But now we're kind of unlimited in that regard. And so I'm trying to leverage those tools and learn the technology. And fortunately, they've made platforms that make it easier for dummies like me to use the technology and leverage that in order to help as many people as possible. And so I think that's kind of what my passion is, what my calling is. And I always know it's the right thing, because even talking about like this with you, I leave feeling like insanely energized and never like drained. And working on these projects, whether it's waking up at 4 a.m. to work on it, I'm just like high as a kite the rest of the day because I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
So between that and the support of my family and everything I have going on, I just refer to it as my best life, because that's kind of what I feel like I'm living these days. So yeah, if people want to connect with me, chrisrochewellness.com is my website. It's currently under construction, but they can still get on my email list and get notifications as things arise. And I'll be putting it out there on a bigger scale, let people know how to get involved, and whether that's with the 21-day challenge to kind of help them, quote, change their mind. That would be one option. If they want to, join me for classes at Cityoga a couple times a week, I'm here. They can check out the schedule. Shoot me an email, chris@chrisrochewellness.com. Call me. My phone number's on the website. Yeah, I'm just, however people want to connect, reach out, because I'm really wanting to help out.
All right. Well, we'll include all your contact info on the podcast notes and the details. And like you mentioned too, people can find you at a class here at Cityoga. I should mention too, you do amazing work with our yoga teacher training program, and people connect with you there, and the value added nature of your teaching is such, incredible experience that people, it has an impact on all walks of people on their yoga journey. So
thanks. That really means a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I know our listeners have enjoyed hearing you from all around the globe. And, we have a pretty big audience in the Midwest and a larger audience even beyond. The beauty of technology that you mentioned today is that we can have these voices of transformation and compassion and really progressive teaching really spread rapidly. And, there's place for our listeners to be sure and comment and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear more of what's going on from our little studio in the Midwest. And thank you all for listening. And thank you very much, Chris, for joining us. One more thing.
I held this till the very end. I agreed to do this podcast, but I'm going to challenge you or ask you to let me interview sometime to be the host or to be the guest on your podcast, because I know you have an amazing story to share, and I want to make sure listeners hear that, either me interviewing you or someone, or you just sharing it in front of the mic, because I would love to have that story out there for people too.
Oh, all right.
All right, brother.
Okay. I'll commit in front of everybody.
Right on.
All right.
All right, brother. I appreciate it. Love you, man.
Thank you. I love you too, man.